Hey everyone, I'm here today with one of our PM interview coaches, Mitchell. Mitchell has experience working in product management at LinkedIn. And today we're going to do a few quick tips for your LinkedIn PM interview. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Cool. Thank you guys for listening, first of all. First tip is LinkedIn, obviously a lot of different companies too, but care a lot about the culture fit. So spend a lot of time on behavioral interview questions. And a couple pointers for those is that practice on your pitch. I'm sure one of your interviews is going to be, or more than one, is going to be tell me about yourself. So have a 30-second, a minute, 2-minute, 5-minute, different length versions. Practice it so it's second nature. And make them themed and structured. So for behavioral questions, it's pretty standard what they're trying to gauge through these questions. So they're trying to see if you can work in teams. How are you in conflict resolution? Are you to blame others first, or are you more self-aware, and then are you able to learn from it? Also, for all your contribution, were you on the driver's seat versus just being a follower? So, and do you have a growth mindset? Do you have the grit? Are you going to do whatever it takes to launch the product out more? So just all those, just think about the different things they're trying to gauge from behavior questions and make it themed and structure around them. So it's every question you answer is a pitch, basically.
And what's an example question there for some of the viewers? Maybe like, what might be a couple examples?
Yeah, so obviously the pitch has to be themed in that way too. Why you want to be a PM, why you're going to be a great PM. But for
or like a question, example of questions for
So this is a just funny story. I was on site for Asana, and then Jackie Bavara interviewed me, which was a really cool experience. And then
for those who don't know, Jackie Bavara wrote "Cracking the PM Interview," co-wrote it.
Yeah, and her entire interview section, which was 45 minutes, was all behavioral. And she asked me questions like, what kind of changes have you instantiated within your organization yourself? Or what was the hardest thing you did? What was the thing that turned out that was just totally unexpected? And maybe just also some typical questions like, what was a conflict that you had and how did you resolve it? What did you learn from it? What was your biggest failure? What did you learn from it? And what is the project that you're most proud of? Why? What did you exactly do? So if you look at these questions, it's basically just, are you able to lead and work in teams? What were your actual contributions? What kind of changes did you make? And when things go to south, how do you react to it and how do you learn from it? It's mostly in those buckets. So make sure you, for every bullet point, the next tip I was going to say for the behavior portion is just you have to be able to tell a coherent, compelling story for each and every bullet point that you have on your resume. So everything is fair game. So just make sure for everything you have this kind of mindsets of, okay, how can I demonstrate as a PM skills? How can I demonstrate I can work in teams? How can I resolve conflicts? And what kind of contributions I made? So, so that's the behavioral portion. The next tip, the second one is for LinkedIn in particular, other companies, Google definitely ask you to code, but we won't. So you won't have an actual coding technical interviews, but definitely know how things work under the hood. So common questions like what happens if you type www.linkedin.com on your browser. Make sure you go through the technical details and be as specific as possible. So the more specific you are, the better. And common questions here are like, explain how a web browser works as if I'm your mom or I'm a 5-year-old. So have plenty of user empathy, and that also makes you really be specific and just down to the finite detail. So make sure you practice it that way whenever you practice for technical portions of LinkedIn interviews. And next tip, ask a lot of questions and put time to organize your thoughts and write them down in the beginning. Don't rush through them. It's okay to take time, and they all get it. It's actually a minus if you just jump right in. It shows you are kind of rushed and you just don't think through all the options. So make sure you do that. And one other thing is basically for PM interviews, we are trying to see how you think. So if you're comfortable doing it, only if you're comfortable doing it, if you just think out loud so that you can demonstrate how you think. And that way you can also engage the interviewer. They can maybe give you some pointers on the way too. So maybe practice it a couple times during the interviews, during the mock interviews or practice sessions about like, okay, just just as you write down your thoughts, okay, I think this, I think that, just try doing that. If it's too awkward, don't do it, but I think it could have some advantage. So that's another, yeah.
To ask you on this, Mitchell, like one common question that a lot of clients get is, oh, well, what if they see that I'm not thinking about it correctly? Or, you know, like, so what would you say to someone who's like, oh, well, I could do that, but it just might not be the right approach or it might be wrong. And they might see that I'm wrong.
So first thing is, don't be afraid to be wrong. As a PM, you will probably be wrong 90% of the time, and it's just how you recover, how you receive and respond to feedback, how agile you are with your mental thoughts, and how actually extensive you are with your thoughts. So I think as far as you go through the thoughts, and maybe your interviewer will point out, hey, I don't think that's right, and just don't be defensive and just have a point to defend it or actually acknowledge the pointer, as long as you're able to recover from it. And maybe after you go through the brainstorm and then during the actual interview, just go through them and then say, I initially thought this was that way, but now that I think about it, I think this is the other way. Then it just shows you are that much more mentally flexible. So I think that could be a plus. But obviously, if you're not comfortable doing so, I don't recommend it. Only if you're fully comfortable and you practice it doing this way multiple times, recommended doing it that way.
Cool.
And just relax and just be yourself. This is a hard thing to do. It's way easier said than done. One common tip I get around this room to make this easier is you are also interviewing the company and the interviewer in the interview. So it's kind of paradoxical because if you actually at least show that, or in your mind, you don't want it as bad, you're cool, opportunities come. So as long as you have that mindset, you seem more relaxed and you seem more cool, and that's a plus. Instead of just think about when you're interacting with a friend, if he's or she is super self-conscious and would go out and do anything to please you, I think I think in that case, the rapport isn't there. So I think definitely wanting the job and the role is important, but knowing how to control that, I think is also a great thing to keep in mind as you go into the interview. And one more thing to help with this is just practice makes perfect. So practice, coaching session, or just grab a friend and have a mock interview session with them. It's just, I think I've done 50 to 100 going into my interviews, and that definitely helped me just be cool and then just know what I'm gonna get myself into. And it will get better as you practice more. So, and lastly, I get a lot of questions from my clients about how do I be more creative with my answers, and this is not only for LinkedIn but in general. As you go through the brainstorm and go through your solutions, just ask yourself, okay, would people actually use this? Or is this unique enough? Does it exist? Is this just something that just makes sense, but it's just not out there? And then just keep thinking. And I think if you ask yourself those questions as you go, you will be able to tell if this is actually unique or not. And keep asking yourself, okay, how do I build onto that? So whenever I have clients who want to be more in-depth and creative with their solutions, I tell them, take a step back and just don't stop at the initial brainstorm, but from there, build onto it and then do a second brainstorm. And then ask for the time, because you have plenty of time, and then interviewers will appreciate more thoughtful, more creative answers that come out of the result of that brainstorm rather than a rushed out, non-creative answer. So. Yeah.
Awesome, Mitchell. Well, these are a great set of questions, especially for the LinkedIn PM interview, but honestly for PM interviews in general. If you are looking to see Mitchell in action, we have a few videos of me interviewing Mitchell for mock product management interviews, where you can see Mitchell do some of these things really excellently, and you can tell that you practice a lot with the questions and the ability to really, understand and break down your problem thought process to me. And so I think that's something you're really good at also. So be sure to check out those as well.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mitchell.
Thank you, guys.